Okay, welcome. Good afternoon. I'm Karen Horton from the Delaware State Housing Authority, and with me are Michael Pavelski from the Sheward Partnership and Leah Wergo from the Delaware Valley Green Building Council. Thank you, Michael and Leah, for joining us, and to those who are attending the webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to learn about grant opportunities for people who pursue the U.S. Green Building Council's leadership in the Energy and Environmental Design, LEED, Silver certification in Delaware's downtown development districts. We are recording the webinar and we'll be distributing it afterwards for reference. First, what we'll do to get started is I will give a brief summary of both the district and LEED grant programs. Then Michael will provide an overview of LEED, potential paths to LEED, and what to expect when going through the certification process. Leah will cover the many benefits of LEED, and finally we want to leave plenty of time to answer questions. As you have questions, please type them in and we will track them and answer them after the presentation. So just to give a little bit of background for those that do not know, the Downtown Development District Initiative was created to leverage state and local resources in a limited number of designated areas throughout Delaware, traditional downtown areas that are highly distressed and risky for developers. The goal is to infuse these areas with public and private investment to spur revitalization and to transform them into vibrant downtowns that attract talented people, innovative small businesses, and residents from all walks of life. Now, this is accomplished by a two-step process. First, by designating the district and offering state and local incentives to investors to invest in these areas. Since the program began in 2015, a total of 8 districts have been designated. They are here before you: Dover, Seaford, Wilmington, Georgetown, Harrington, Laurel, Milford, and Smyrna. And we'll be providing a website link at the end of the presentation where you can access a map to find out exactly where the districts are. Now, the key incentive is the district grant, which DSHA administers. Simply put, it's for investors who make real property investments within the districts. It's available for a broad range of projects: residential, mixed-use, commercial, industrial. And think of the grant as an up to 20% rebate of the capital costs necessary for rehab, expansion, or new construction. We call these qualified rural property investments, or QRPIs is what we rattle off our tongue around here, your bricks and mortar work. Now, to support a variety of projects, the district grant was divided into 2 pots of funds. The small project grant has a simple, streamlined process for investors whose total qualified rural property investments do not exceed $250,000. The minimum investment is $15,000 and the maximum grant you can receive is $50,000. You can apply any time of year as long as the funding is available. Then we have a large project grant intended for transformational projects, and these are those projects that can have a huge impact in revitalizing downtowns. So this is for projects specifically with over $250,000 in those QRPIs. And a minimum investment of $25,000 is required, and it's treated as a deductible. Now, one important note is that the district grant is performance-based, and the funds are distributed after the project is complete. Also, the district grant is available to virtually anyone. This includes for-profit builders and investors, nonprofits, businesses, and even homeowners. So, however, governments are not eligible for the district grant. And since the LEED grant is only available for large projects, I'm just going to focus on the large projects from here on. Okay, like I said, while we do not distribute the grant up front, we did want to provide investors who are making these investments assurance that they would receive a district grant grant once the project was complete. So we have a reservation process. Investors can apply for a reservation 2 times a year. We typically have these application rounds once in the spring and the other in the fall. The other requirement is that the investor must begin the project within 1 year of the reservation and finish it within 3 years. And when the project is complete, the investor must engage a CPA to perform an attestation of costs. Now, here is a chart showing how the large project grant is calculated on the level of investment. The first once you meet that $25,000 deductible, the first $500,000 grant is calculated at 20% over, like I said, that minimum $25,000 minimum. And that would reflect a $2.5 million investment. Grants over $500,000 are calculated at a lower rate. A $1 million grant would reflect a $20 million investment. And then finally, the last $500,000 grant would be calculated at even a lower rate. And that's to a maximum grant of $1.5 million. And just to give you an idea, you would have to invest $41 million to max out your grant. And we did this because we wanted to encourage these transformational projects without quickly running out of the funds. So, moving on. The Downtown Development District Program has broad support and it reflects strong collaborations. And as a result, we have had the opportunity to advance mutual state and local objectives. This could be creating permanent jobs, expanding housing choices, or promoting sustainable practices. In fact, projects that meet these mutual objectives receive additional consideration in the reservation round. For district investors who promote sustainable practices by pursuing LEED Silver, we were very fortunate to receive a grant from the Delaware Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control to pay up to $30,000 for third-party costs associated with the design and certification process. And while these soft costs are not eligible for the district grant, they are exactly what is eligible for the LEED grant. And so this would not be double dipping the district grant funds. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Michael Pavelski, who is a LEED accredited professional and has a lot more information and experience than I do in LEED certification, and he's going to share more information with us.
Great. Thank you so much, Karen. So what we wanted to provide everyone with was a high-level overview of the LEED rating system and how projects that would potentially pursue this grant opportunity could select their appropriate path that made the most sense for the project. So LEED has been around for almost 20 years now and is administered by the U.S. Green Building Council and the Green Building Certification Incorporated. So these agencies work together to promote and certify projects as LEED certified buildings. So as Karen mentioned, the projects that are eligible for this grant opportunity are fairly wide-ranging, and we'll get into that a little bit. But what we wanted to do was illustrate basically the 4 levels of certification, which you can see on your screen, ranging from certified to platinum. To achieve this, these additional dollars through the LEED grant, silver is the target. So the projects need to achieve at least the 50 points out of 110 possible points in the threshold. Additionally, one item to note is that as of last October, projects are now registering under the latest system, which is LEED version 4. So that is, in every rating system, there is a different LEED rating system that aligns in the LEED version 4 system, which we will get into in a little bit more detail. So this particular overview gives you a sense of the many pathways to take in looking at your project under the LEED focus. So the three areas that you'll see highlighted in blue are the projects that, project types and rating systems that would most be applicable for projects that Karen mentioned. So LEED has a family of 5 sort of greater families, if you will, of rating systems, including neighborhood development, building design and construction, interior design and construction, homes, and building operations and maintenance, which is really focused on existing buildings and the more of the operation of those buildings than the new construction of those buildings. Neighborhood development is meant for sort of a planned, broader community-based development and looks at more of your infrastructure instead of the specific buildings per se. So that's why the 3 areas we've highlighted in blue are the areas that you would likely pursue the grant under. And it can look a little bit overwhelming with so many choices, but the idea that USGBC has really rolled out is that these projects will have a unique path and that the LEED rating system is tailored to the unique project so that it makes it much more manageable to achieve certification under. And each of these systems, for example, a school will have very different needs and building space uses than, for example, a retail facility and different occupancy and uses and hours. So there's basically to say there's a path for each project, and really it can be tailored specifically to your needs on the project. So in each rating system, there's a series of different categories where you can achieve points. There are also a series of prerequisites. The prerequisites occur in each of these categories. They are different prerequisites for each rating system, so we won't get into that granular detail this afternoon, but we certainly can revisit that in the future. So the reason we wanted to show this to the group today was to illustrate the fact that the points available in each system are fairly equivalent, minus the blue highlighted area of energy and atmosphere. And that's really a category that you can reap a lot of return on investment benefit from installing more efficient HVAC systems, better lighting, improving your building envelope, and other areas. Some may be more applicable to certain projects. For example, location and transportation and sustainable sites tend to favor project sites that are located in more urban areas that have a high level of access to public transit. So Karen had shown you all the update on the development districts that are designated now, which tend to be in a bit more urban areas, which is great from the LEED perspective. And then there's other choices that really sort of gauge how your site and your project can encompass and achieve the necessary 50+ points to get to silver. 2 areas of note is the innovation category, which is worth 6 points. That gives your project the opportunity to branch out beyond the prescribed LEED credits and really look at doing different strategies and implementing strategies, whether it be in your design and construction or your operation, that make the project stand out from a sustainability perspective. And then regional priority credits are really bonus credits that you achieve based on your achievement of other credits in the above categories based on your project zip code. So certain sustainability attributes have been flagged as key areas for projects to really focus in on, whether it's water, materials, energy. So this gives you a pretty good overview of how you can achieve the points. This is definitely not meant to get into the detail, But what we wanted to do is show you how the rating system is broken down into various credits. And the idea was to incorporate this into the presentation so that at a later date, if you did want to go into more detail and understand each prerequisite and credit for LEED for new construction, you could do so at that time. And this gives you a sampling of how in a new construction project you would approach the checklist and the credits. And it's so big that it does take a few pages. But it gives you a nice overview of the strategies that are being looked at for each project and how you can align that with your project goals. And I'm going to now turn it over to Leah to talk a little bit about the benefits of LEED projects and buildings.
Okay, so as you can see, there are many benefits of LEED certification and building green, and many of them touch on at least one of the three aspects of the triple bottom line, which are people, planet, and profit. Benefits of LEED buildings include energy reduction, water use reduction, materials reduction, carbon reduction, job creation, improved health, and many others. The statistics from the next several slides were pulled from the Business Case for Green Building, which is a publication by USGBC that came out in February 2015, and it's available online. Gives a really great overview of the benefits of LEED and green building, and it contains the sources for the following statistics as well as other resources. And one of the points that I wanted to highlight is the fact that consumers, buyers are beginning to see the merits of building green and having LEED buildings, as illustrated by increasing market demand. And this also illustrates that sustainability matters to people. LEED certified buildings with lower operating costs and better indoor environmental quality are more attractive to a growing group of buyers. In a survey on corporate social responsibility, more than half said that they were willing to pay extra for products and services produced or offered from companies that are committed to positive social and environmental impact. And over 60% of corporate leaders believe that sustainability leads to market differentiation and improved financial performance. Green buildings also attract tenants. The new Class A, or typical office space, is green, and lease-up rates for green buildings can range above average by 20%. Owners of green buildings reported that their return on investment improved by almost 20% on average for existing building green projects and almost 10% on average for new projects. Building certification, green buildings, can also positively impact happiness and productivity. We in the United States spend on average about 90% of our time indoors, so it makes sense that the built environment can have a huge impact on our quality of life. There was research conducted on LEED certification's effects on 562 financial institutions, and the results of that study showed that annual utility costs per employee in green facilities was $675 lower than in non-green facilities. Employees working in the LEED certified branches of the same financial institution was found to be more productive and engaged in their work. LEED certification can also impact healthcare costs. Building retrofits that improved the indoor environment of a building, think daylight, circulation, access to views, resulted in reductions of communicable respiratory diseases of 9 to 20%, allergies and asthma of 18 to 25%, and nonspecific health and discomfort effects of 20 to 50%. And this can all have a major impact on recruitment by employees as well as retention. As the last several slides have shown, green building and LEED certification is good for the bottom line. LEED certified buildings have been proven to use 25% less energy and a 19% reduction in aggregate operational costs in comparison to non-certified buildings. There are also a variety of tax benefits and incentives, like the grant that we're talking about. And this extends beyond just the commercial market. Residentially speaking, 73% of single-family builders and 68% of multifamily builders say consumers will pay more for green homes. So in sum, LEED certification can positively impact people, planet, and profit. And with that, we'll start looking at some real-world examples of LEED.
Great. Thanks, Leah. So we want to share with you a few examples of projects that are in the state of Delaware and a few others outside, really to give you a sense of how LEED would apply to different projects. So these projects we happen to be involved with, so we can certainly answer questions in the Q&A period in more detail. This was a major interior renovation project at the Delaware Solid Waste Authority Administration Building. So the project was not a new building. It was an interior renovation that had a few minor exterior components. It was approximately 4,400 square feet of renovated space in the existing building. The project utilized the LEED version 2009 for commercial interiors rating system and achieved base level certification. So you can see some of the statistics that we are showing through really off-the-shelf water technologies that are cost neutral, no premium hard cost to achieve. We were able to get over a 40% water use reduction within the facility, which has a direct impact on the bottom line of your potable water costs for usage. So this facility is used quite a bit for educational purposes. There's a center in there where students from K-12 schools often will visit and have a field trip or a day of learning. So the idea was to not only build the renovations in a green manner and achieve LEED certification, but also we wanted to make sure that the students were aware of how the sustainability measures impacted the building and the built environment. The interior lighting power was reduced significantly. This is something that in today's market can really be done, again, without an additional premium for hard cost construction, with the really rapidly decreasing cost of LED lighting, which is pretty much cost neutral and standard for most commercial and even residential projects in today's market. And that really equates to, when you're looking at your electricity use in a project, that goes right to your bottom line, not only from a global carbon footprint standpoint on a project and a building, which is what a lot of larger corporations in Delaware are tracking and looking at, but also from a cost standpoint of what your monthly utilities and energy bills can be in the project. And then we also incorporated a very rigorous construction and demolition waste tracking approach. So we diverted by weight nearly 80% of the construction waste, and there was a significant amount of interior materials that were removed from the building and then replaced, obviously, with new construction materials. So it was a very successful project and a good example working with Delaware that a LEED CI project can be adaptable. I think the other lesson really with this project is you might not think of this sort of as how would LEED fit in for a project like this, because it's not a true commercial office space. There are some offices in it, but it has a big educational component and some big multi-purpose spaces and open areas for the students to join in assemblies and events. But the idea is here that LEED can really be adaptable to your project, and it can benefit the project not only from, as Leah was mentioning, the triple bottom line, but it can have, you can categorize sort of the benefits based on the project, whether it's you're looking really to focus on a return on investment, you're looking at health and wellness from a project and a productivity standpoint, or you're really looking at the environmental stewardship of how you're approaching projects. The next project is a much larger project that was new construction. So this particular project was a new Delaware City DMV facility. So this project, the program was fairly extensive in not only providing offices for the DMV folks, but it was also a very public-facing facility in that it had a significant number of transactional stations for the public to come in and receive service, and also for motor vehicle testing and driver's testing. So this project was silver certified, and this is under LEED for new construction version 2009. Again, another Delaware project. So at 43,000 square feet, what you can see, the chart is what the U.S. Green Building Council typically puts together after a project is completed and is online. So you can search LEED registered and LEED certified projects by state, by zip code, by city, by name, and you can start to understand what project types people are seeking LEED certification or other samples and examples in the region. So you can see that the project achieved 54 points, which is a nice threshold above silver. So when you're looking at getting to the silver level of certification for the grant achievement, you really want to make sure in your early project planning that you don't just target the 50 points, because things change along the way, and the construction process is always, there are always some hurdles in that where projects can potentially lose points along the way. So you want to make sure you do have a 4 or 5 point buffer if that does in fact happen as you move through the project. So this project performed very well. You can see on sustainable sites, even though it was not at all an urban location, it also performed very well on water. So those were taking, again, off-the-shelf technologies that we implemented, working with the design team and the state to make sure that, because this is a high volume building in terms of there's a lot of employees, but there's also a lot of transient visitors on a daily basis that are using restrooms. So it's a high volume water usage. So that 40% plus reduction is going to mean obviously reduced water usage, but also reduced cost from long-term operation of the building. We worked closely, being a greenfield site, with the civil engineer and the landscape architect on the team to make sure that the plantings were reflective of the state, sort of the natural habitat, and that we didn't have to spend more money and dollars on hard costs for installation of an irrigation system. That we established the plantings and the trees, but after that they could really thrive on their own without the continual upkeep and maintenance and cost of a potable water irrigation system on the project. And then what you can't see in the photo, but there is design really let in a significant amount of natural light through clear story windows in the open transactional area for customers, which is basically windows that are elevated fairly high, so they don't provide issues typically with glare or sun being in people's direct face. But what this did was allow us to really focus on reducing our interior lighting power density in the facility and use natural light, which is going to benefit the employees and ideally make people more amicable as they're waiting for their DMV services. But a lot of studies have proven that access to views and natural light while you're in an office environment, while you're waiting, while you're in a healthcare facility, have significant impact, and there are a lot of studies around that. So we tried to implement that as much as we could in this project to drive down the energy cost of the building. The next project is not quite in Delaware, it's just outside in the state of Maryland. But we wanted to show this example really because, as Karen mentioned, some people often may think that the industrial projects are not a good fit for LEED certification, but actually they're a really great fit because typically industrial projects have a significant square footage, and that square footage drives a lot of what's happening in terms of the site stormwater management, the hardscape, the roofing material, and those have a significant impact environmentally and also on really looking at how the site handles and manages stormwater overall for project sites. So you can see projects like this. This happens to be an industrial building that's about a little over 500,000 square feet, where the roof provides a lot of opportunity for stormwater catchment and reuse, and also the areas around with the blue lines show how the stormwater was really managed carefully so that it went into specific areas of the floodplain in the building. And the next slide also provides a little bit of strategy on how we as a team really went into that. You can see that industrial these are typically semi-heated buildings, so you're heating until around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. But you can have significant impact if you look carefully at your building envelope, also your HVAC systems, and there's been a lot of progress in industrial heating that's made the energy efficiency much, much better than probably 10 years ago in terms of driving efficiency for these projects. The other piece is that you can do a lot with industrial projects in terms of your on-site materials, because a lot of these projects either are precast concrete or tilt-up in-place concrete, which can have dramatic impact on the reduction of trucking and shipping costs. So a lot of that can be done on site, and then you utilize the materials, pour the forms, and tilt it. And again, on this project, we were fortunate to have a really great contractor that worked with us on significant diversion of landfill materials. And this project is just about LEED Silver certified. We're in the final stages. The other piece I wanted to point out with this project is just because a project has started, the design process, you're sort of underway, it doesn't mean that it's too late to pursue a LEED certification for a project. Ideally, in the perfect world, you would engage, and we'll talk about that a little bit, the LEED pursuit and goals from the get-go of the project. But this was actually well into design and almost starting construction, nearing construction, when we really worked with Liberty Property Trust, the developer, to officially pursue the formal certification process. So keep that in mind as you develop your projects, that if you have things sort of either started or you've gone through some design and you're sort of reviving the project, it doesn't mean that it's not a possibility to achieve certification, because there are still a lot of things that can be done to get you to silver level certification like this project. And the last case study that we wanted to show was just over the border near Longwood Gardens. This was a residential project that it was a multifamily. So we had 48 different residential units, and they were all connected. So what you're looking at in the image is 2 units. They're connected really by a party wall for efficiency in terms of energy efficiency and just building efficiency. The goal originally by Kendal, which is a national sort of senior care community that has 3 steps. You sort of go in independent living, move to assisted living, and then skilled care, nursing, is really, they found that, to Leah's point, the residents and future residents were really looking for a more energy efficient and sustainable living environment. And before these buildings were completed, there was a waiting list to move in, basically. And these were not, I mean, these were starting price, and this was around 2012, 2013, was in the high 300s, going up to 700,000. So these were, there was definitely a big demand, and we ended up achieving gold level certification. So all of these, this particular project, you can see on the right in the LEED facts chart, this was under the LEED for Homes rating system. So that is probably the most different of all the LEED rating systems from new construction and commercial interiors, because it has a little bit different pathway than those other systems. And you typically, in addition to your LEED accredited professional, you need to have on board LEED for Homes provider, which is a more on-the-ground agency that is affiliated with the National U.S. Green Building Council, really to verify that what is being built is going to actually realize the energy efficiency and savings. So this particular rating system requires that you have those LEED for Homes raters on your project site and looking at the project as it's being built, inspecting the exterior wall construction, inspecting the sealants, and looking at your HVAC system and the tightness of the building. So it's really a great tool because it provides a lot of education along the way as you go through construction to understand what things could be tweaked or adjusted just to make it that much more efficient. And working with the developer on this and Kendal, we had a really great partnership and got to a higher level than originally wanted to and desired. Silver was the goal, and we ended up getting to gold. So we wanted to talk a little bit about general high-level process of going through a LEED project. As Karen mentioned and is in sort of the recommendations for the grant, one of the first things is get someone who has been engaged and understands the LEED process that can help with some guidance if the development team does not have that sort of in hand already. The second piece that we recommend is really register your project, because there are addendums that do come out to the LEED rating system and adjustments. So once you are into the current system, pretty much you're grandfathered in if there are any changes or adjustments that would potentially, usually the adjustments are raising the bar, so it's making it harder to achieve silver level certification, not easier. So that's something that we really recommend, just getting that in, submitting the payment, and making sure all of your documentation in terms of your registration forms are really into the U.S. Green Building Council, so you have that locked in. At that point, you can really start utilizing the LEED online tools that are available. And that is when, during the design process, again, this is the ideal scenario. So there's paths that can be divergent from this, but you would craft your design review package, which is really all your strategies related to your design approach and your process, that how you're sort of planning to achieve certification. There's specific points in LEED that are dedicated design package points and then construction points. You would ideally submit those sort of toward the end of design, get feedback, lock in those prerequisites and credits that are design focused, and make sure you have those set. And then when you move into construction, you can really focus your energies on documenting and tracking your construction efforts, from your materials to your waste hauling to your HVAC, filtration media, and your air quality. And a lot goes on at the end of the project, so that's a really that's a good strategy sort of to break it up. You can also certify as one entity, sort of one project combining design and construction. This helps, we've found, to really guide the project and give you a sense of where you stand when you get to your construction review. And then finally, the certification process. So usually that does not take place immediately sort of when the certificate of occupancy is granted, but you do need to submit your final package to the U.S. Green Building Council and Green Building Certification, Inc., and go through the review process and formal review for final certification. So that does take some time. So it can be up to like a 3 to 4 month process to go through those reviews and get approval. So it's not an instant certification once you get your C of O. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Karen just to talk a little bit about the grant process summary.
Thank you, Michael and Leah. That was an excellent overview of just all the different ways to get to LEED and the benefits. Just to quickly bring it back to the grant process, our process really aligns very much with what Michael just said, is that, first of all, when you submit your reservation application, and this here is a little different, is you want to have a LEED letter of intent, which basically is your commitment that you've read the instructions, you understand the development process ahead of you, and that you intend to go down this process. You also want to submit a copy of the developer's contract with the LEED accredited professional or your LEED consultant, and a copy of their certificate or the list of their experience. Now, as Michael mentioned, you get registered right away, as soon as you can, with the USGBC through LEED Online. And what they're going to do throughout the process is they're going to be giving you feedback. You're going to be filling out what your goals are for it, and they're going to be giving you feedback on it. And so what we're going to ask for, it's not written in stone like every other month or something, but we'll check in from time to time to get a copy of it just to see that essentially that progress is being made and that there is ongoing interaction with the USGBC staff. And then finally, once the project is complete and that silver certification is obtained, we would like a copy of it. And one thing that you can do as you're going along the process is you can submit your documentation of the third-party costs as they come up during the design and development and certification process, and we'll hang on to it. But since this is separate funding from the district grant money, we're going to distribute it after the building is complete and the USGBC's LEED Silver certification is submitted. One thing real quick is just to point out that there are a lot of information and resources available on the district program and on LEED. I cannot mention these two websites are really the central two websites to really keep in contact with. One is the Office State Planning Coordination's website. It has a link to all the districts. You can pull up all the maps of the designated districts, find out if your project is in or out of the district. All of the state and local incentives are also located on this site. And just to mention, you know, that the incentives aren't just like the local incentives. There's also, for example, Kent County and Sussex County. They have stepped up with matching grants. We have the LEED grant. This is also on the Central Incentives website that's embedded in the state planning website. And then also with the Delaware State Housing Authority website, we have a tremendous amount of information as well. We have guidance material, applications, forms, all found at the website. And we'll also have this webinar at the conclusion will also be posted on this website as well. One thing you'll notice when you go through these websites is just how the Downtown Development District Initiative has become a true collaboration to revitalize Delaware's downtown areas. Like I mentioned, Kent and Sussex has stepped up and offered matching grants up to $10,000. Now DNREC has made the LEED grant available, and this is all making revitalization a reality in downtown areas, just the areas that need it most. Before we open it up for questions, I want to thank very much Leah Wergo and Michael Pavelski for coming to Dover and sharing their expertise, and to DNREC for giving us this SOFA for this LEED grant. Just so many resources and technical expertise has been brought to the table to make a program hopefully more accessible to folks that are interested in investing in the downtown districts, downtown development districts, and we're just very grateful for that. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead, bear with me, and open it up for questions.
Do you want to put our contacts? The last slide.
Oh, yes, definitely. Okay, hold on. Just one moment. There we go. And if you have questions, please, I'm going to, okay, and I'm going to scroll up. Okay. Daniel, can you hear us? I'm trying to figure out, okay. Daniel, I'm going to read your question.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
I can
wonderful.
hear you.
Everybody has been so quiet that I thought maybe I muted everyone. So here it says you've submitted your application for the DDD grant and has been approved. Can you now submit a letter of intent and contract with LEED Professional? Yes, we, Delaware State Housing Authority, we want to encourage the use of this grant fund. And we know, Daniel, that you are very early in the construction phase. just for background, Leah and Michael, is Daniel, I believe you have the Picus building in Milford, correct?
That's correct.
And it's a historical registered building in downtown Milford, and he's doing a complete renovation on it.
Okay.
And so he received it, I think it was just last fall, correct, Daniel?
That's right. Received it in January. This past January, got the approval.
Yes. Okay. So very recent. We would be happy to, because this information is really very, very new. And so we would be happy to accept a letter of intent from you and to help you go down that process and set you up with this LEED grant.
Thank you.
And also, did you have any questions for Michael since he's here, perhaps with the existing building?
Yeah, it depends on the scope of the renovation. So it sounds like the project could be a good fit for both. It could be a commercial interiors project because it sounds like maybe an adaptive reuse, or it could be LEED for building design and construction and a pathway down that road too. But they're definitely, I mean, we've done a lot of major sort of renovation historic projects, but there'd be a fit for a project of this type to achieve certification. And a lot comes down to sort of the scope, and this is for any project, the scope of what's happening in terms of how extensive the renovation is, and how does it get into mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, and building envelope, and things like that. But there's definitely a good path for a project like that. And those are actually, I mean, I love those type of projects myself because I focused a lot on historic preservation, and those to me are sort of some of the greenest, most sustainable projects because we're sort of reusing a lot of the infrastructure, and typically in urban areas that really drives development into those core areas that are more walkable and transit-oriented communities. That's great.
And another question, I will need a LEED professional. Is there a list of LEED professionals in the Delaware area?
We can compile a list of the LEED professionals, and if you like, we can forward Michael's contact information. Well, actually, it's right up here. He is a LEED accredited. That was not our intent. You know, he just has that expertise to bring to the table. And, you know, Michael, he was just sharing before the webinar how a large part of what they do is just education and outreach. But we have, I mean, Michael is certainly someone you may want to consider to reach out to.
Okay.
And we can also start compiling a list of LEED accredited professionals and putting them on the website, because that is a very good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay then. Well, we want to thank everyone for joining us. I hope you found it as educational as I did. And please just check back soon for the recording on the website. If you know of folks that you think, wow, I wish they had saw this webinar, please, you know, let them know that it's going to be on the DSHA website, and it may very well likely be on the state planning website as well.
As well as DVGBC's website.
Wonderful. Thank you, Leah. So with that, I just want to thank Leah and Michael again for their time and expertise, and want to thank everybody who took the time to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you.